welcome to Decked Out and Dialed In, Episode 2. My name is Stefan Delgado, and I'm a passionate Disney Lorcana player, as well as team owner for Illuminati. And I'm joined by...
Dr. Lore, aka Josh Matthews. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and fairly new to TCG world, but fell in love with it, and I want to bring my mental health expertise to kind of help everyone level up their play to the best it can be.
Awesome. Today, we're going to be talking about Tilt and how it affects you in your gameplay and after the fact, too, and why you should try not to do it.
Well, as a new TCG player, I am curious on what more an advanced TCG player would define as tilt. So, what would you define as tilt?
I will say that I accurately tilt after a turn 2 triple daisy, and the fact that I'm not doing it. But more realistically, it's observing a pretty critical misplay that defines the outcome of the game. That I know for a fact that I could have either taken a game for the opponent, or kept the margins of error slim enough to get through the rest of the game. But really it's just like immediate frustration because in a lot of aspects in life, a lot of people assume takebacks, right? Like, oh, I made a mistake, so let me just take it back.
Yeah.
However, when you're playing a highly competitive TCG, that is not the case, and it is very much against the rules, especially in a highly competitive arena, to assume that takebacks are okay. So, a lot of players will apply a lot of pressure on themselves to not do takebacks in order to prepare themselves for a situation where that does happen. And it sucks, but we're all humans. We make mistakes, and now, hopefully in this episode, we'll go over suggestions and exercises to help you deal with tilt.
Perfect. For my clarification, it sounds like tilt is just this level of frustration and irritation with self because of a misplay. And I can definitely relate to that. The last big tournament I was in, I threw down a good old Monstro, but there was no exerted cards on the other side of the table. So I definitely had a little frustration with myself. So I definitely can relate to the emotional experience.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that amplifies tilt in general are these long tournament days, right? Compared to a mistake that you might make in locals where, the most that you're competing for is store credit, a pin, a promo card, up into the actual set champs going on right now, which is the Maleficent Dragon, which is a huge fan favorite. So I am noticing this first weekend of set champs. It's very reminiscent of the first set champs into the Inklands with Stitch Rockstar, and
Yeah.
how sweaty that experience was.
That was my first set champ, my first actual competitive experience, and I do remember a packed house of people being very eager to play and win.
Did you win any?
I won through the great lotto of buying the card, but did
Oh,
not.
okay. I mean, a dub is a dub, right?
But
Thankfully,
I think there are some great skills that we can learn to help with tilt. And I love what you said about it can have a compounding effect. Like the longer that you go for the day, the longer the tournament is, it all has a compounding effect. So I think one of the first things I would love to kind of address or bring up is just like being self-aware and kind of that is a skill. It's not something that everyone just has. So it's called emotional scaling, and all you do is kind of it's kind of a self check-in on a scale from 0 to 10. 10 being like angry, overly anxious, kind of an intensity, and 0 being like totally like neutral, calm. Most people never at 0. And it's a skill because it's something we can't just do in the moment. This is something we got to learn before we even get into the tournament. It's something we can do each day. When you wake up in the morning and go, where am I at from that 0 to 10 scale? Maybe check in the afternoon. Where am I at? So that we can have stuff that we can start to compare it to. Because again, if we know we're in the tournament day and okay, I'm at a 6 already. Okay, well, I'm going to need to take care of myself between rounds. Whether that be some grounding things that we've talked about in a previous episode, or a stretch or a walk, or even just like basic needs of like I'm at a 6 because I'm hangry and I need to get some food. And so I think the first skill everyone can really benefit is really becoming more in tune with that emotional experience. I don't know if you've experienced it, but I've experienced not really paying attention to where I'm at emotionally until I'm already at the 8, 9, 10 on that scale. And at that point, it's kind of hard to recover.
Yeah, you definitely got me at hangry because I've been in those situations. I am the Snicker bar diva,
Mm.
so to speak. But yeah, like things like being hungry can really like because in the middle of a match you might be focused. Oh, I can't wait to get some lunch after this or something like that. But you know, or having to use the restroom. Like there's like a lot of external factors that are already applying pressure, and you just need that one misplay for the what is it, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I think, and that's the important part of that emotional scaling is knowing where I'm at, knowing, okay, I'm at a 7 right now, so I'm going to need to do something about that. Because again, the more we get closer to the higher levels of that number, for us, and everyone's numbers are going to look a little different where that looks like, the higher we're going to get to that tilt, the higher we're going to beat ourselves up for those mistakes. The more that's going to be detrimental and impactful to us. So again, the first skill we need to learn is where are we at? And what do we need to do to try to manage that level, and whether that be, you know, for me, I'm a trail mix muncher. I'll just, like, you know, if I need to eat something, or do I really need to prioritize going to the bathroom, or like even just stretching or taking a deep breath. And I think that can be a great strategy just to approach the day and approach ourselves into those tournament situations.
Yeah, definitely being self-aware of that scaling is super important because you know it's like you want obviously you want to be the one doing the best that you can and that already can you can be applying immense amount of pressure but yeah, that constant check-in is a really good suggestion. Sometimes you might lose your first round and then that's when the tilt starts, right? You're like, you know, I'm fighting winning in all the way for the rest of the day, so
Perfect
it
play for
can
the rest of the day.
yeah, so it can be very stressful.
Oh
But
man.
being able to check in with yourself, ground yourself, prepare yourself for round two and on can be the difference between that win,
Mm-hmm.
winning in, or you're out. So, you know, it's again, like you can prepare for playing a lot of Disney Lorcana, but if you're not mentally preparing yourself, what good is all the work you did playtesting, preparing, building, if you're not able to navigate a hurdle such as a tilt?
What are some ways that you've navigated some tilt in your own experience?
For me, a lot of it probably has to do with just taking a break from the arena. So going outside, experiencing like the weather, like you know,
Mm.
where I'm down here in South Florida, so typically it's very hot. If you're in a good game story, it's a little cooler, but yeah, just you know, taking maybe like a brisk walk, drinking some cold water, recognizing like you know this if you lose the next round, you lost the next round, and that's it. It doesn't necessarily mean you're forever a bad Lorcana player. It just means that today wasn't your day. And you know the great thing about Disney Lorcana is that it's going to be here for around for a while, so you have plenty of days to play, get better, you know, quote unquote, because you are playing at the best of your abilities. But on a more serious note, like it's just you have to understand the moment that you're in, and again, there's situations uh, outside of your control that think about it this way: whether you tilt or not, the situation will still occur. So, is it worth you know, building up the tension in your body, like exploding and possibly saying or behaving in a manner that might be a little difficult to walk back from? It's not worth it. It really isn't. You want to be able to kind of save face and understand that, um, you know, again, today just might not be your day.
Yeah. You know, in such a great community we have, sometimes it can be protective. So sometimes those out of character moments can be impactful in ways we wish they're not to be. But there's two things that are actually grounded in science and in psychology that you talked about in the first one is kind of that grounding experience of changing the setting, right? Grounding ourselves by going out, taking in nature, taking in our surroundings, more of this kind of visual grounding exercise of kind of bringing ourselves out of the mental space that we're in and bringing ourselves in the here and now. Going outside, looking at the weather, looking at the palm tree, looking at the birds, looking at or if it's different environments, those geographical array of surroundings can be a great grounding experience, right? I'm walking out of there and I'm going to change my location and change where my body position is and pay attention to what's going on right here in front of me. I think that can be super powerful. And the second one, which is one I really want to talk a little bit more time on, is this kind of cognitive reframe piece that you use, right? And all cognitive reframing is taking what has happened and reframing it into a productive and non self-destructive mental processes. Because when we engage in self-destructive processes, we bury ourselves, right? We're beating ourselves up. And that's actually what research shows doesn't actually help us grow or change or become better people. We actually do really well with the carrot and the stick and really bad with the rod, per se. So we do really well when we incentivize ourselves, encourage ourselves, put that kind of carrot on the stick. And we do really bad when we just kind of say, "Oh, you're just terrible. You made that mistake, and what are you doing? You ruin the day." So even putting that carrot in the stick and go, next game, I'm not going to make that same mistake. I'm going to go in there and say, "I'm not making this mistake," and that becomes the area I'm focusing on, not to beat myself up, but to proactively go, I can grow and change, because then in the next game we don't make that mistake. We feel proud of ourselves. We see, I did it, I learned, I grew, and that's great mentally and emotionally for us, right? So trying to pivot those self-destructive thoughts into a great goal we can work on for the next round or next match. Or a great opportunity for us. And I know that's hard, and sometimes I think what you did is great because you pulled yourself out of the environment to let that emotion come down. Then you can reframe it to kind of set that goal to go into the next round or next match and not make that mistake again, and setting that goal, and not saying you're the worst player ever for making an error, but just saying, okay, I made that error. Okay, how am I not going to make that again? It's a great cognitive skill and a great behavioral skill that you employed like in your own experience. So I love those examples.
Yeah, and those things, they don't come overnight either, right? I will say that Digital Arcana is my first like serious competitive TCG. I did play like casually some other ones. So it's tough because you like, especially a lot of your upbringing can have a huge impact. If your parents or family have set high expectations for you to deliver, that can directly translate even into the world of your hobbies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we do this hobby, um, you know, I would like to think that the majority of the intent is to have fun.
Oh yeah.
um, I, I I am aware that there are people who are highly competitive. Whether it's a card game, a video game, anything in general, and this just might be the hobby that they just want to be competitive, and that's totally okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, that competitive person has to understand that they're not going to win all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to have the mental endurance that grants them the stability to navigate through a tough loss.
Yeah.
Like imagine in this most recent DLC in Bologna, right? Everyone's cheering on the grand or the first place winner,
Mm-hmm.
but no one's really thinking about the guy who made second place, right? The guy who really thought he had a chance, and the amount of pressure that he probably applied to himself after the fact, like what could have I done, and not really recognizing the path that got them there, because that's just as important. And this might not have been their shot, but there's always the opportunity in the future for them to have their shot.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to go down to the one loss I lost versus like every one I've won. And it's easy for our brain to go down there. So that reframing can be like look zooming out and seeing that holistic picture. And like you said, I really like those kind of skill sets of like we use our scaling to kind of know where we're at to prevent ourselves from getting to that high level to increase the likelihood of experiencing tilt. But then when we do experience tilt, what are the things we can do to kind of manage that to be ready for the next round? But I think even afterwards, if we weren't as successful as we would like to, I think part of it is allowing ourselves to feel the emotions we need to feel. Some of that can be anger and sadness, and none of those emotions in itself are bad, right? Anger is not necessarily a bad emotion. Sadness is not a bad emotion. The intensity of the emotion is what matters, right? And that's all this is finding ways and strategies that we can manage the intensity. Because I'm sorry, I don't think anyone would say, "Hey, if I was in the finals and I lost and got second, I wouldn't be a little bit sad." I mean, I think we all can agree that, like, man, that would feel.
Yeah.
You
On a separate side note, I will say I do enjoy the scaling that the pricing has done for the DLCs,
Mm-hmm.
because in top eight, I feel like if you made top eight, you made your weekend, because
Oh,
you do
yeah.
get the golden Mickey, right? So like the rest of it at that point seems like, well, you get your world's invite at
Mm-hmm.
first, so there are tangible benefits, but um, you know whether let's look at it this way. Sure, it sucks not getting first place, but what about that person that just got their first top eight in the set champs, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge
Mm-hmm.
accomplishment. That
Huge.
is recognizable goals that you can attain reasonably, and then allow you to set your next one. And, just because you may have missed and bubbled on the next one, again, feel what you're feeling. It's frustrating. Being on the bubble sucks. There is tilt-worthy reasons to do so, but tilt responsibly. Let's say, right? Just um, allow yourself to feel, be understand that this is, there's always another opportunity,
Yeah.
and just learn from that experience. And I think that is how you navigate tilt.
I love that, and tilt responsibly means you manage the tilt intensity,
Mhm.
and I think a word that gets thrown around is resiliency a lot, and I really want to reframe this to a lot of people, kind of as kind of a good capstone for this conversation, is resiliency is built by our successes because our brain needs this win loss ratio kind of. So if I have some successes, when I have a loss, my brain can go, it's okay. It's like you're good. You see all these things that you did versus this. But if we discount all of those victories, if we don't celebrate those things, even if your DLC goal is, I'm going to go in there and not make these three mistakes that I always make, and you don't do that, that's a win. Celebrate those wins because that actually will help you build the resiliency. Resiliency isn't made just by losing a whole bunch, but resiliency is having that balance in our mind in the win category and the loss category that makes the losses less impactful because we have the wins. But for what I've noticed for a lot of people is we're really good at discounting the wins. Like we just should win every match and should never make a mistake and should, we have all the shoulds in the world that we should play perfectly. But when we do make one mistake, then that defines our play versus really understanding that, in every game I made 90% great decisions and I made 10% bad decisions, and somehow that 10 defines me. It does not. That 90 defines you way more than that 10. In finding ways to really be grounded in your wins and your victories, setting your small goals and large. Obviously, we can have the large goal, but setting those small goals and celebrating those victories will help you be resilient. Will help you manage tilt as well. So I think for me, my small goal is to make sure that I am inking responsibly because I have a tendency to ink cards I'll need later, and then making sure that I'm doing great ink math because I tend to do some ink math error, and that's my two small goals for my DLC. Do you have any of what about yourself?
I think one of the things, and I think you said it quite beautifully, is the uh, essentially evaluating yourself based on your skill level. And I think one of the interesting things that I've experienced playing this game is people equating their skill level to their self worth.
Hmm.
So you know, they practice so much, they play so much, they hold themselves up to such a standard that if they lose round one, like that is not the character that they built for themselves. So I want to steer far away from setting that expectations. Would I love to win the DLC Milwaukee? Absolutely, and I'm sure all 2,047 other people do as well. But only one of us can win, and if it's not me, I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as I'm going, doing the best I can, if I win, great, super awesome. I obviously, my reaction on stage will be a lot different than this podcast, but realistically speaking, like if I go to DLC Milwaukee saying if I don't win, I'm going to not have a great time, I'm just setting myself up for failure. I
Yeah.
just want to go play great games, hopefully make top, set the next goal from there.
I think that's a great strategy, a great perspective to have. You know, I know it's a different dynamic, but I don't ever remember Kobe or Jordan never missing a shot and never blowing a game or a play, because the greats and the people that are great in their sport, and this is a sport, it is being able to recover and bounce back. That is the key, and I think that some of the skills we talked about today are going to help you bounce back, and that is what separates that mentality of growth and development, and understanding that there isn't this like elite level that we sit down and win every match. It just doesn't happen. You know, variance is a thing, and just poor matchups is a thing, and that just is gonna happen. I mean, I don't remember if anyone else remembers the Bucky eras, but I do. And you know, at the end of the day, that is the skill set of the mental game of TCG, and hopefully you all can take some pieces of the stuff that we talked about today and run with it, and improve that mental game, and find that resilience and that bounce back, and you know, experience your tilt, but again, tilt, I like that you said tilt responsibly. I enjoyed that one. And
That
I
sounds
think
like a great merch idea.
oh yeah, that's a t-shirt and a half. I love that, and I think that will help you not only enjoy the play better, but the experience. I think one thing that me and you can 100% agree on at all times is this should be a great experience. Your set championship should be great experiences. Just the DLC should be great experiences, and I think you know you talked about it best, is that like that community experience is so important.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our episode today. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this episode is, again, we should put it on a shirt, tote responsibly. But it is again being able to recognize that if you do make a mistake, you know, it could it doesn't have to be as bad as your brain is telling it to be. You know, because we tend to spiral, and you just got to be able to ground yourself and navigate through that little speed bump and have a good rest of your day. I think that is a huge thing. And again, leading into whether you're going to your set champs this coming weekend or preparing yourself for Milwaukee or any other competitive event, you know, everything you did to prepare yourself for this moment is quite important. You know, mental health included, preparation, like these are all important things. So take this idea, put it in your back pocket. Hopefully it helps you during your next competitive event.
You know, we'll see you all in the next one.
Take care, everybody. I was if I had it at the tip of my tongue, that was hilarious. All right, hold on.